9. Samaya Begum. While living in Bradford, England as a teenager, Samaya Begum refused her father's plans for an arranged marriage to her cousin in Pakistan. But 4 years later, in 2022, the 20-year-old was mercilessly slaughtered by her uncle in what's been described as an honor killing. Begum was studying as a biomedical major when she was murdered. At the time, she was living with her grandmother and another relative under the protection of a court-mandated forced marriage protection order. She was there for her safety after her father tried forcing her into the marriage under a threat of violence. Her 52-year-old uncle, Mohammed Tarus Khan, nevertheless tracked her down and drove a spike through her back, fatally piercing her lung. The young woman's body was found in a garbage dump following a 2-week search, and Khan was charged with her murder. He denied responsibility for Begum's death, but there was ample evidence against him, including testimony from another uncle who tried to protect Begum from Khan and her father. Sadly, though, the uncle who tried to help feels responsible for failing to stop Khan from murdering Begum. He was reportedly too devastated to return to the home where the murder happened, where Begum's grandmother now lives alone. In the end, Khan was found guilty and received a sentence of 25 years in prison. 8. Karen Reese. In 2023, British serial killer and former nurse Lucy Letby was handed a whole life sentence for murdering at least 7 vulnerable young hospital patients and trying to kill 6 others in 2015 and 2016. It's believed that there may have been more victims, and the full extent of her crimes may never be known. In Britain, a whole life sentence is the same as life without parole. It means a person is never getting out of prison and is rarely imposed in the UK. This punishment is typically reserved for the most heinous criminals. The Letby case has naturally caused people to wonder how she got away with her crimes and if any warnings or opportunities to stop her were missed. During the trial, a doctor who worked at the same hospital as Letby mentioned how he and several other staff members told Letby's supervisor, Karen Reese, that they were concerned about the number of deaths that were happening on the nurse's shift. His commentary sparked questions about why Reese refused to fire Letby, even after her colleagues began calling for the suspected killer's removal. Reese defended herself in statements to several news outlets, claiming that she lacked the amount of evidence necessary to fire Letby. She said she tried talking to staff members about why they wanted Letby terminated, but claimed that the doctor she needed information from refused to give her the details she was asking for. The disgraced nurse, who's now retired, said that she's currently taking legal advice regarding the so-called false allegations against her. 7. Laurice Taburo. In August 2023, French news sources reported that a Disneyland Paris employee was fired for allegedly refusing to put certain toppings on a family's waffles. The incident happened 2 months earlier, when 20-year-old Laurice Taburo was working at a food stand called Les Chariots Gourmands. According to the disgruntled guests, the worker refused to accommodate their request for both whipped cream and Nutella on their waffle order. A dismissal letter confirmed that it's policy to only let guests have 1 topping on their waffles. Furthermore, Taburo explained that if he'd accommodated one family's request for double toppings, he would have had to do it for everyone who was waiting in line to order. And ironically, he thought that this would have gotten him in trouble. But to Taburo's surprise, it was his adherence to policy that got him fired, as well as the so-called nonchalant tone he used with the guests who complained. He was let go several weeks after the incident. The odd timing and reasoning for his dismissal has led Taburo to believe that he was victimized in a witch hunt for participating in strikes earlier in the year. His name and photo had been published in the newspaper Le Monde when he and other Disney employees demanded a pay raise. Under French law, they were allowed to demonstrate, but Taburo and at least 4 others now suspect that they've been fired in retaliation for doing so. Of course, though, Disneyland has declined to comment on the matter. 6. Kaleo Manuel and Herman Andaya. As devastating wildfires overtook the Hawaiian island of Maui in August 2023, residents in the town of Lahaina scrambled scrambled desperately for their lives after receiving little to no warning to evacuate. Within minutes, a brush fire engulfed hundreds of homes as firefighters fought a losing battle to put out the flames. With traffic backed up bumper to bumper and cars catching fire and exploding, civilians began jumping into the ocean to escape the blaze. At least 115 people died in the disaster, with many more still unaccounted for, and the number is expected to rise as the search for the missing continues. Local and state officials are being heavily criticized for their handling of the disaster. No warning sirens were activated, despite Maui having over 80 designated outdoor sirens for warning locals of a natural disaster. Herman Andaya, administrator of Maui's Emergency Management Agency, initially defended his decision not to activate the system, but he ended up resigning from his position. He claimed he was stepping down for health reasons, but the timing of his decision is curious. Additionally, former Deputy Director of the Hawaii Commission on Water Resource Management, Kaleo Manuel, waited more than 5 hours to greenlight the release of water to combat the fire at Lahaina. The West Maui Land Company, which manages several of the island's water providers, accused Manuel of refusing its request to release the waters earlier, giving firefighters no choice but to look on helplessly as they tried in vain to combat the fire. Sources reportedly told the Honolulu Civil Beat that Manuel asked the company to consult with a local farmer about the impact of the water's use on the environment before he'd be willing to give his blessing. The company believes that if the water had been more readily available, firefighters would have been better able to help. But Lahaina was destroyed, and it's unclear yet how many lives were lost. As a result of the controversy, Manuel was transferred to another position within the Department of Land and Natural Resources. 5. Starbucks bathroom controversy. In April 2018, a Starbucks manager in Philadelphia was accused of racism after refusing to let 2 African-American men use the cafe's bathroom. The manager claimed that they denied restroom access to Rashawn Nelson and Dante Robinson because they weren't paying customers. Nelson and Robinson sat at a table and said they were waiting to meet with someone. But an employee called 911 and the police arrested them for trespassing. Footage of the incident went viral, sparking widespread protests and threats to boycott Starbucks. In response, the company closed around 8,000 of its stores, while around 175,000 employees underwent racial bias training. As a result of the controversy, Starbucks fired Regional Director Shannon Phillips, who oversaw roughly 100 locations, including the one in Philadelphia where the bathroom incident occurred. However, she wasn't directly involved in the refusal to let the men use the bathroom or the ensuing arrests. The high-earning former employee sued Starbucks, alleging that she was scapegoated and fired based on her race. In a lawsuit, she mentioned that she was fired a month after the incident and claimed that she'd worked tirelessly to repair community relations in the wake of the arrests of Nelson and Robinson. Phillips was awarded nearly $28 million after the court determined that her claims were valid. Based on the ongoing controversy surrounding the ordeal more than 5 years later, there's clearly still a lot of work to be done in the Community Relations Department at Starbucks. 4. Wrongly accused man languishes in prison. In 2003, a British man named Andrew Malkinson was wrongly convicted of brutally attacking a woman. He was sentenced to life with a minimum of 6.5 years. There were numerous inconsistencies in the case that pointed toward Malkinson's innocence. He was taller than the man described by the victim, and he had chest hair and tattoos, which also didn't fit with the description of the perpetrator. In addition, Malkinson had no scratches to his face from the victim fighting back, and there was no DNA evidence connecting him to the scene. But still, he was chosen out of a lineup, and it spoke strongly enough for the court to find him guilty. Determined to prove his innocence, Malkinson fought tirelessly for a review of his case over the next 17 years as he languished in prison. His appeals were denied, despite another man's DNA profile being found during a retesting of evidence in 2007. Malkinson repeatedly asked the Criminal Cases Review Commission to re-examine the case and to retest other pieces of evidence for DNA. The commission turned him down twice, citing the costs associated with DNA testing. Meanwhile, his refusal to admit guilt kept him in prison, even after he became eligible for parole. Malkinson still wanted to clear his name after being released for good behavior in 2020. So he once again requested a review of his case and finally got his wish. Just as he'd insisted all along, the DNA exonerated him completely. The commission blamed costs and a case overload for its failure to carry out the testing at an earlier time. But Malkinson's legal advocates claimed that if they'd just taken a look at the case file, they would have noticed inconsistencies that would have easily justified prioritizing the matter for review. The justice system has been widely criticized for its handling of the case, which led to Malkinson needlessly spending nearly 2 decades in prison. 3. Plumber's sympathy runs dry. An Australian plumber named Haz did his best to accommodate a difficult customer after being hired to work on the person's home in Melbourne in 2023. He was alerted to the job by a neighbor who said that the customer had no hot water and needed it back up and running as soon as possible. After hearing what he later described as the biggest sob story ever from the customer, Haz agreed to perform the labor for free and only charged for the parts he needed to fix the problem. Even after being given a discount, though, the customer avoided paying after getting the runaround for weeks and not receiving a penny toward the job. Haz took the situation into his own hands. In a viral video that appeared on TikTok, a worker could be seen using a saw to cut the non-paying customer's hot water pipe. Haz later posted a follow-up video explaining that he has a big heart and is usually willing to help people. But his kindness got abused, and the customer failed to show any appreciation for his continued attempts to work out a payment. The plumber even claimed that the customer asked him to reconnect his stove weeks after the plumbing job was finished. But by then, there was already tension between the two over the customer's non-payment. The relationship eventually fell apart to the point where Haz felt justified in undoing his work. One of the final tipping points came when the customer went on a European vacation, despite claiming he couldn't afford to pay for the repairs, suggesting that the stubborn client was simply refusing rather than unable to pay. 2. Tattling toddler rats out fugitive. When state and local police went to a home in Williamsburg, Kentucky to arrest a woman who was wanted on 6 warrants in 2023, they found the fugitive's family gathered for dinner. The officers asked where the woman was, but the adults in the room refused to tell. One relative said she didn't know if the woman was in the house, while another claimed that she lived down the street. Amid the denials of any knowledge of the woman's whereabouts, a toddler stepped in and said, "It is good to be honest. We shouldn't lie." The tot revealed that the fleeing fugitive was in a room next to the bathroom, then turned to one of the adults and said, "You're the one that told me not to lie." Officers found the woman exactly where the child said she'd be and took her into custody without incident. Nobody else at the scene was charged with any crimes. In a Facebook post, the police noted that the child and their family were visiting from out of town at the time. They reassured the public that the little one appeared to be safe, healthy, and in no sort of danger, and just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. 1. Cowardly cop is called out on social media. A 58-year-old police community support officer, or PCSO, named Stuart Metcalf came under fire in 2023 for refusing to respond to a report about a fight at a nearby store in Lansing, West Sussex. Dashcam footage of the incident showed a witness approaching Metcalf, who was seated in a parked squad car, and telling him about the violence occurring less than 300 yards, 274 meters away. According to the witness, the fight broke out when Good Samaritans tried to stop a teenage shoplifter. The suspect was allegedly drunk and threw her drink in a woman's face. In the video, Metcalf could be seen playing on his phone while telling the witness that he wasn't part of a response unit. The witness then responded by saying that the sight of the police car would be enough to cause the crowd to scatter, thereby putting an end to the fight. But the cop said, "Yeah, but then I'll have to deal with it." Metcalf's apparent refusal to tackle the situation happening just a 30-second drive away left many feeling like the police don't care about public safety. The 41-year-old woman who was attacked by the suspect, known by the first name Rohini, told Mail Online that she saw several shoplifters stealing things. Feeling sorry for the overwhelmed security guard, she called the police and warned a young woman that she was going to film her and show it to responding officers. In response, the teen threw a can at Rohini's head and punched her in the face. The footage of Metcalf refusing to respond to the call went viral, and a Sussex police spokesperson reassured the public that the video is under review. He also apologized for the officer's clumsy language. Would you rather find out that a struggling friend got evicted after you refused to loan them money for rent, or that a dangerous criminal struck again and harmed another person after you refused to speak with police due to your fear of retaliation? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.